Welcome back to Dynasty Theory. John isn't hosting today. We will get to that in a minute. But Dan is back. Dan is back from FanX, Palooza, whatever it was. The real question is, does John Cena have a restraining order against you right now? Or did you escape the weekend okay?
I haven't received anything yet, which is a good sign. I might have, been in the clear, meeting Cena for the third time, boys. Got the championship belt, took a beautiful picture with him. He said we got to put the pictures side by side from the last time we met, which is great. Then I met my boy CD Lamb, and he couldn't be any more awesome. He was giving my son football advice, which was great. So we love Fanatics Fest. I would highly recommend that for anyone who could go. There may be 2 restraining orders coming, Frank. It's possible. Then I had a nice relaxing trip in Lake George, which, I was able to tune in a little bit to the show last week. But, guys, we can't just do things for just, the guy things. You got to take care of the girls sometime. John, your kids may not be old enough yet, but we go to Lake George. And, I like my collectibles. And I found out about these little boo-boos, man. I don't know if you guys have heard about them, but they are the craze. I was like being a nerd watching an Apple conference, and the one YouTuber put it on here. I think Dynasty Theory, if you put Labubu in the description on YouTube after the show, guys, it will just take off, man. But the daughter and I were hunting for Labubus in Lake George, so it capped off a great week. But I know we're really here for football tonight, so let's roll, boys.
Yeah, like I've never heard of them before, but it takes a long time for stuff to get to Utah. They got to go over train car and wagons, so it does take a little bit. But we are also here with John, and the reason why John's second is because we did actually have NFL news that dropped today. We had Mika Fitzpatrick traded to the Dolphins, and the Steelers got Jonnu Smith, Jalen Ramsey. John, does this matter at all? In what way, since you are the biggest Steelers fan? I personally know.
Oh my
Where's the challenge flag?
Such a huge Steeler fan. I like the trade from a real life NFL perspective. I don't like the trade for my Jonnu Smith shares. I don't like the trade for my Pat Freiermuth shares. When we were looking at this season, it was a consolidated target share from Aaron Rodgers going to the running backs, DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth. And with the way we're expecting this offense to flow from a volume perspective, maybe that was sustainable and that was going to be okay. But now you add Jonnu Smith, who I love Jonnu Smith, but I love him when he was with the Dolphins. I don't want him eating into what should be a relatively smaller pie, comparatively speaking, when you have Pat Freiermuth, DK Metcalf, like I said, the running backs, and now you're adding in Jonnu Smith. I think this takes Jonnu Smith out of that tight end 1 territory, bumps him back to maybe back end tight end 2 at best. And then Freiermuth, the same thing. I think there's going to be a lot of 12 personnel. I think they're hopefully going to cater to the strengths of the offense, and we will see a lot of 2 tight end sets. But I just, any tight end premium format where maybe you didn't need Jonnu Smith or Pat Freiermuth as your starting tight end, hopefully not Freiermuth, but there was that flex appeal at times. That's gone now. So Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, they're certainly moving down in my tiers. I made the adjustment in my cross-positional tiers immediately. You could say, well, they play differently. Jonnu Smith, probably a little bit more versatile. They can use him in different ways. But even with reuniting with Arthur Smith, I'm not loving this.
Dan, is there any Miami tight end that you're looking for on waivers right now?
No, I mean, if it's a real deep league, I think Julian Hill might be the pass catching, because I don't think Pharaoh Brown is. I think Pharaoh's more of a blocker, but I hate those guys, to be honest, for fantasy. I think this maybe is a win for the Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Achane out of the backfield. Like, that offense is so concentrated. I think we really know where the majority of those targets are going to hit every week. So maybe there's a little uptick there for some of those Miami pass catchers, but yeah, I hate this trade, to John's point, man. Like, that's just this depressing if you're a Jonnu or Freiermuth owner. And I think you're just going to continue to have disdain for Arthur Smith offenses in fantasy football.
Well, and for Miami, there's already conversations about, well, they might be targeting a tight end. Michael Mayer, obviously, he's one of the higher, most talked about players there. Maybe it's just everybody wish casting it more than anything. But I don't know that even if it sticks with the tight end room as is in Miami, there's nobody that I'm like, oh my God, I got to pick him up off waivers, even in tight end premium leagues.
No, but I think the thing is, as soon as if they do trade, say it's an Elijah Higgins, right? Just random tight end name, but they trade for him, all of a sudden his value is going to get boosted. So I wouldn't really waste any money on any of these guys on waivers. But
I still think Seattle's got to move a tight end.
I can see that.
I can see a Noah Fant moving.
Before we get into the show topic tonight, I want to make sure to hype up ddfantasyfootball.com. John and I had a Trinity Tool show last week on trending. Please watch that. We had a roster optimization tool just drop this week on it. That the tool is fantastic. Please go, please look, join up, get part of the Discord. And the reason why I'm talking about the Discord, because if you're in it, John has his tiers, and that's why he is not hosting the show tonight. So John has his tiers that everybody has on the Discord. If you're in there, they're great to follow. They're great in startups. They're great for everything. So tonight's show, what I wanted is I'm just picking two very good players that are close to each other. There is no hedging. And so the main reason for this, we are looking at these players as it's a 12-team league. You're on the cusp of being a good team. So this isn't it. Well, no, I'm going to rebuild, blah, blah, blah. We're not doing that. We're going for the glory. So you're going to take the guy that's going to help you go for the glory over the next 1 to 2 years in Dynasty and so forth. And Dan, I try to remember all day. 2 years ago, you were the best overall ranker for a website, but I cannot remember the name of the website.
It was Fantasy Nation.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we got a little magazine pub for a little while, which was cool.
So Dan's rankings are amazing as well. So we're just going to go into it. The first two, absolute fire.
Dan and I have not seen this.
No. Oh, yeah. So that was the other thing.
All.
They don't have show notes at all, which is like John is having issues with this right now. I know Dan hates it as well. So for the first 5, we're going to go John, Dan. Last 5, we're going to go Dan, John. Okay? We're going Jaden Daniels, 24 years old, fantasy calc quarterback 2. I have seen quite a bit of times he's actually quarterback 1. And then Lamar Jackson, age 28, fantasy calc quarterback 3. Lamar Jackson was quarterback 1 overall in fantasy last year. Jaden Daniels, quarterback 5. John, you have to pick one for the next couple of years. Who are you going with?
I'm going to go Jaden Daniels. There won't be any hedging here. Now, of course, Mitch said I have my tiers. These two players are tiered together. I have a feeling it's going to be a common theme when we go through a lot of these pairings. But I was actually, I don't want to say I had to make this decision initially. I picked the 103 in a startup that's in the 4th round right now. Lamar Jackson slipped to me. In the 2nd round, one of our Discord members, Tony, very active league member, sent me an offer, his 102, which was Jaden Daniels for my Lamar Jackson straight up. And I accepted the trade. Let's say it goes as it did last season. You get a few extra points per game from Lamar Jackson in at least the typical, +4, just the +4 -1 that's over there on Fantasy Pros. But you're giving me the 4 extra years, a dynamic playmaker. And again, I could be speaking about both these players, but give me Jaden Daniels. I think there's more room to grow from not so much from a value perspective in terms of like 2nd overall, 3rd overall, the 101, but I think to increase that gap. Whereas I don't know if at this point Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, like people just, it's dumb, but people get so bored with them. Like they're incredible, but people seem to get so bored with them. And Mitch, like you said, Jaden Daniels, like he's gone 101 in several startups. So give me the newer shiny toy in Jaden Daniels. But I mean, you can't go wrong, but no hedging. Jaden Daniels.
Dan?
All right. Man, as painful as this is without show notes, and you kicked us off with a good one, Mitch, I won't throw any challenge flags at JB, but I will go in the other direction. I'd rather go with the devil that you know versus I see John projecting, all that potential room to rise there with Daniels. You know, I see in the chat the Stroud Texans year 2 comparison. You know, I don't know if it's so much figuring the team out, you know, and teams they're going to have, you know, film now on Jaden Daniels and how to prepare for Washington. I just still have some questions on that offense a little bit there. You know, McLaurin's a year older, still fighting for a contract. Debo, he may or may not be fat depending on who you talk to. So we don't know what we're getting there. You know, we're panicking about Noah Brown being injured. And I mean, Noah Brown's not really something to get excited about. I'm holding hope with Luke McCaffrey. You know, I'm looking at my Dynasty Daddy shares, and they're pretty high on Luke, and he's looking pretty jacked up this offseason.
Look at the names that you're counting on here. And Jaden Daniels was able to be as productive and efficient as he was. And you're talking about having to rely on players like Noah Brown and I almost said Ed McCaffrey. You know, there was nothing but opportunity there for him. And
same with CJ Stroud, right? But now we got film, JB. You're not sneaking up on me anymore with Jaden Daniels. You're not surprising me anymore. No. Coaches are making adjustments. Could Washington's offense evolve? And even if I'm not saying that I don't want Jaden Daniels and they're not going to be good this year, JB. I'm just saying teams can make some adjustments. He may not rise as much as people hope. And I have a lot of confidence in Lamar. Plus, Cliff Kingsbury's good chance he's gone after this year at Washington. Then we're getting a new offensive coordinator again. You factor that in there. So I just like the devil that you know. I'm not hopping off on Lamar. He's only 28, man. He's in the prime of his career. There's enough dynasty years there for me to stay on the Lamar train.
And think about going into last season, how many people, some that I'm looking at right now, that despise Cliff Kingsbury. That
was me.
That use that as
I still do.
Hey, not necessarily looking to buy into this offense. I just you mentioned Jaden Daniels and the CJ Stroud path. You can't even compare the two. CJ Stroud is giving you nothing from his legs. Jaden Daniels still gives you that elevated floor, even if things just absolutely shit hits the fan.
Yeah. But Lamar could run too, right? Lamar could run too. And in his offense, I am confident is going to be awesome this year. Where I'm just saying there's a chance there's not enough offense around Jaden Daniels and teams adjusting a little bit. I give the slight edge to Lamar. But it's close, JB. Yeah. I didn't throw a challenge flag at you. It sounds like you're throwing a challenge flag at me here.
I would never.
Besides Josh Allen, is there any other quarterback you guys would put in this tier?
No, not for me.
Yeah, same. That's how I was too. Okay, we'll go to the next one. And we're going to bounce around between positions. So we got Saquon Barkley, age 28, fantasy calc, running back 4. Going into last year, everybody hated him. We know how that was. Then we have Devon Achane, age 23, fantasy calc RB6, who is now going to be slotted for at least 150 targets since Jonnu Smith is gone with the Dolphins now.
150?
So, minimum. John, what are you doing here?
Listen, I think people are going to hate all these answers I give. So pile it on. I'm going to take Devon Achane. I know there, people, they question his stature, his involvement, the way he's used, but Devon Achane, when you take Jonnu Smith out of the equation, we're looking at a 20% plus target share. We're looking at just a massive ceiling on a week in, week out basis whenever Tua is on the field. And again, this is not by any means Saquon Barkley hate, but we have a running back that's about to hit the age of 29 that you don't get the opportunity to cash out, especially after a monster season like we just saw and his usage. Give me Devon Achane. Again, I know I'm going to be picked apart in the comments. So let's get the tough skin tonight, boys.
Yeah, like again, JB, I mean, I won't throw the challenge flag if you want to be an age discriminator. Normally that's me. But if we're listening to Mitch, like truly listening to him, he said we're going for it tonight. We are contenders. We want to win. If I want to win, I want to go with Saquon Barkley.
Oh, because Devon Achane. Sorry, let me finish.
Your word count is over.
I need to stop interrupting. I'm sorry.
I know this isn't easy, JB, but hear me now. Saquon is, again, he's in that Derrick Henry category. He's not your normal human being running back. This guy's a specimen. He's in 28 in the prime of his career with an O-line that's in the prime of its career. Like, there's no slowing down there. Achane, I know we talked about, hey, the volume may be concentrated there. Now, another weapon's gone in Jonnu, but He's only 5'9", $188, and I think people forget that a little bit. Behind an O-line that's going to be 20-plus ranked in the NFL this year, there are still questions in that O-line. This is a head coach who's on the hot seat. I just think there's a lot of risk in that Miami offense. Love Achane, but if we're going to win the next, 2 to 3 years, I'm going to go with Saquon. If we were building, I'd be with you on the Achane pick, but I'm going to go with the specimen at 28 and Barkley. And, man, for a Cowboys fan to say that, I ding everyone just for being an Eagle. So I really got to be just dropping the bias to go with that one.
Dan, so Saquon came out a few weeks ago. He was on a podcast, said that, his favorite running back ever is Barry Sanders. He left early. Saquon can definitely see himself just walking off the sunset at a point to where we're not expecting. Let's say they have another good year and he goes to the Super Bowl. Are you worried at all that he is 28, maybe he goes before he's 30 and you do only get these 2 years?
I like how we dig into anything in Dynasty Theory. We were talking about that pre-show a little bit. No questions are off limits, but I don't in this case. I think Barry and Mitch, you know this better than anybody else being a Detroit fan. I just think there's a lot of stress in Detroit. Things didn't always come easy for Barry Sanders. And, as competitive a guy and great player as he was, I think we all wish, and I know you do, Detroit put a little more around him and that O-line because it was one of the best careers ever. I think with Saquon on the other side, he loves football and things are really rolling with Philly. I don't think we see any signs of that slowing down anytime soon. So, again, I think he's more on the Derrick Henry spectrum of lasting a little bit longer than your average running back.
Yeah, that's more than fair. All right, wide receivers this time. And this is going to lead me to, we did the Trinity show last week, John. So for anyone who isn't on the website, if you really want to break down this any of these wide receivers we're talking about, join ddfantasyfootball.com, use code theory, look at the Trinity report. That will help you answer questions like these. So we have Nico Collins, for anyone listening on the podcast, age 26, fantasy calc wide receiver 8. Drake London is going against him, age 24, fantasy calc wide receiver 9. You have to pick one. Who are you going with, John?
Give me Nico Collins.
I thought you would have went Drake London.
Give me Nico Collins. We see the rapport that he has with CJ Stroud, the players that he is competing for in that offense for targets. Dalton Schultz, Christian Kirk, and then a couple rookie tight ends from Iowa State. And then with Drake London, like this is also a bet on me believing more in CJ Stroud than Michael Penix. And I know you can look at what Michael Penix and Drake London were able to do for their few games together at the very end of the season. And I don't want to be the person that says remove a game, especially from a really small sample size already. But how much of that production came against Carolina in a Week 18 game that ultimately, meant nothing. But again, these are great comparisons, great questions. But gun to head, give me Nico Collins. I do believe that he's just. You look at every metric. You can look at yards per out run. You look at the Trinity score that we discussed in great detail on last week's Trending Fantasy. I think that relationship and that opportunity for Nico Collins to continue to grow and develop into that alpha receiver, it's just a little bit more that I'm willing to buy into than I am with Drake London if I'm choosing between the two.
Dan, before you answer, let me ask this. For all these players we go to, it mainly applies to Nico. How much do you apply how good or bad the offensive line is going to be when you're looking at these assets, when you're comparing him to another elite asset?
That's what's probably one of two things that's going to tilt my decision here. I am really intrigued. Like if we had top storylines that we're looking at going into this season for fantasy, one of them for me is the Houston Texans offensive line. This is a team that's O-line struggled last year and got rid of their best lineman in Larry Tunsil and have talked a lot about chemistry and cancerous behavior in that locker room with this O-line. I think I mentioned this. I got into a little argument with Lance Zierlein, who I later discovered covers the Texans this year. Not an argument, but it was just a healthy little Twitter debate. I question that. In football, I'm big on character guys, but I'm not chopping my O-line apart because of character when I don't know what went on in that locker room, but to me, the coaches need to get that together. I think they're taking a big risk this year with a very, very, very suspect O-line. And maybe to JB's point earlier of, hey, Jaden Daniels gives you something with your legs. Stroud needs to, and he's going to be running for his life sometime. So all things equal, man, there's a big difference in these two O-lines. So that's a dividing point. Sorry, long answer there, Mitch, but that is a deciding point. So I guess with that, my answer is Drake London for two reasons. One, the O-line concerns, and two, I got these guys neck and neck in rankings. I actually have Nico one spot higher. I mean, so I get where JB's going with it, but also in Dynasty, man, 2 years from now, Nico's 28 and he's starting to get to that pushing 30. London at 24. They've got a great O-line. I am a believer in Michael Penix. There's this little gut I have this offseason, man, that London's really going to have his best season this year. So I'm going to go with Drake London.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. Like I said, I tried to pick players that were right next to each other. We're going to get some to, there was a little bit of variance here. There's a little bit of variance this one because one's a rookie and the other one was probably the most hype player of the offseason. I think Bucky Irving hit running back 4 at some point, but we have Travion Henderson, age 22, fantasy calc running back 9 against Bucky Irving, age 22, fantasy calc RB7. And I just think this one's so interesting because you have White with the Bucks who could end up catching some passes. You have Henderson who you think is going to catch most of the passes compared to Stevenson, but they're both probably not they're not the Saquon Barkley type that's going to walk in there and get 70% of the touches. So, John, how are you seeing this one play out?
I have Bucky Irving a tier above Travion Henderson.
See, I didn't look at your tiers at all with this.
So for me, it's Bucky. It's believing that he's going to continue to further separate himself from Rachaad White. Obviously, Rachaad's still being involved, but in such an explosive offense where there are going to be opportunities galore, as opposed to New England, where, well, we have the new coaching regime, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of youth. We'll see how that plays out. I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a thorn in Travion Henderson's side from just an overall volume standpoint, at least early on. But Bucky Irving, after what we saw him do, really take over that backfield in his rookie season, you're hoping that's what we get from Travion Henderson. So for me, I'll go Bucky Irving.
Dan?
You're just playing dirty with these, Mitch. These are really close and difficult. This one a little harder. I mean, JB, I'm a little worried Rachaad White will be a little bit more of a thorn in the side than Ramondre Stevenson, but we are saying win now. So for the first time tonight, I might have to agree with JB. I have them in the same tier, so maybe not as far in my rankings as JB's, but I do have Bucky Irving a couple spots ahead of him. I think that Tampa offense could be really explosive. Their O-line is excellent. I think New England is still not all the way there under Coach Vrabel. And as much as I love Henderson's upside, Bucky's so young. So I'm going to go with Bucky Irving too. Sadly, I've got to agree with JB for the first time tonight.
That's honestly where I was going with this one too. It was just interesting because I didn't put really any rookies on here. I have one more besides Travion because in Dynasty, we love rookies so much. But okay, now this next one pains me before I put it up because I know how John feels. Like I said, I have not looked at his tiers, but I was recently in a startup with him and he had a choice to make and he made the wrong one. So we have Bo Nix, age 25, fantasy calc, quarterback 8, or my man, Drake May, age 22, fantasy calc, quarterback 9. John, why are you so wrong?
Give me Bo Nix. Give me that very old second-year player. Again, I don't see how people would take Drake May over. I have them tiered together. So, if I'm sprinkling from a portfolio perspective, if I'm sprinkling in a few shares of each, I'm okay with that. But if I'm in one league and I have that choice to make between Bo Nix and Drake May, it's Bo Nix for me. It's a better situation. You look after the first month of the season last year, just how dynamic Bo Nix was. And not to say Drake May can't give you that elevated floor like we talked about with his legs, but in a situation where Bo Nix was throwing to mostly role players outside of future Hall of Famer Cortland Sutton, there wasn't much else there, so Bo Nix elevating the players around him. We didn't see that from Drake May. And I'm not saying it can't happen, but give me Bo Nix.
Dan,
And
don't do it.
after
Please don't
after
do it.
3 in a row that we were different, I think it's going to be 2 in a row that we're alike. I'm sorry,
I
Mitch,
hate
man.
both of you.
I know this is your guy, Drake May, but again, you set the tone early, Mitch, with saying this is a win now, and I still just can't wrap my mind around his weapons this year. Like, we're talking, like, Kyle Williams is the guy I'm most hopeful for, and that seems to be a little scary. When you have Cortland Sutton over there and that Sean Payton offense, and he just seems to know how to manufacture this. I can see New England being more of a defense and grind kind of team, and May just needed more weapons that he hopefully gets in the next year or two. So love them both. Again, you're playing dirty. They're right next to each other in my rankings, but if you got to hold me to it, I'm going to go with JB here again and take Bo Nix.
The hate for Josh McDaniels in all these podcasts.
Hey, for everybody watching, hit that like button for us and subscribe to the channel. Mitch wasn't going to plug it, so somebody had to.
Well, we were switching on this 5, so I was leading into, hey, like and leave your comments on all these, please. But now we are switching to Dan and then John, and hopefully I do a better job on picking these next couple, because I guess I failed on the last one because I don't like it when you guys agree. So we are now going. This one was fun for me. Chase Brown, age 25, Fantasy Calc RB 15, or Derrick Henry, age 31, Fantasy Calc RB 16. I really think the shelf life on these two is probably close to the same. If I get 2 years out of either one of these guys, I'm really happy. Which one do you want more, Dan?
This cruel and unusual punishment like you planned for tonight. But this has been an off season for me where the Chase Brown meters just ranking higher. I do have Derrick Henry ranked higher. Again, like that situation a lot in Baltimore, but this is where my age discrimination will come in, even though he's not human, Derrick Henry. I know that. So, I could probably easily eat these words, but man, I just think at some point they got to take a little bit off Henry, especially for fantasy. If we're talking PPR, I think it's the Chase Brown show. He's a lot younger. I know we're talking about his shelf life. I see your angle there, Mitch, where it could end if they draft someone in the next year or two, but I think Cincinnati's in on this guy. They didn't draft anybody this year, so it is all Chase Brown this year. And I think it will be for a couple of years. He's just entering the prime of his career. Father Time's got to come at some point. I don't believe it's this year, but if we're drafting here in Dynasty, give me Chase Brown.
John?
I'm also going to go Chase Brown. I think if there is a difference in fantasy production, and we're looking at this from a full PPR format, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
If there is a difference in production, I don't know that it is significant enough to lose out on that significant age gap. And I know with the running back position, obviously we're looking at it from a shorter window, but from a market perspective, there is going to be more of an opportunity then to sell Chase Brown beyond 2025 if they do finish relatively close together this season. And then, of course, obviously you'll have to look at Chase Brown. Well, Bengals are going to draft a running back. Well, everybody thought that this year. Everybody thought that about Miami for several years. Remember, Mitch? Everybody thought that about Atlanta. They're going to spend an early draft pick until we got to Bijan Robinson. So I'll go Chase Brown. But again,
let me just say, in PPR last year, Derrick Henry was running back 4. Chase Brown was running back 14. And it's not like Chase Brown had a lot of competition last year either. I mean, he dealt with Zach Moss for 2 or 3 weeks?
I think it's
this
just
was Derrick Henry. This one, I think
last year was the first year Chase Brown said, "Hey, I could do this." I think there was a little uncertainty last year. Hey, what do we have in Chase Brown? What do we have in Zach Moss? But then last year he separated himself, and became that guy, and then they didn't draft anyone. So I think it's just a little bit of he's ascending where I think Henry's steady. So I could see it, Mitch, but that's my
he's
little
steady with
rationale.
another 20 touchdown season.
Can I cherry pick just a little bit?
Okay.
From weeks 4 through 17. Hold on. From weeks 4 through 17, whenever it was at least 30 degrees Fahrenheit,
The wind was blowing north out of the northeast.
Yes, and we were over my in-laws for dinner that day. The difference between Chase Brown and Derrick Henry was 0.8 points per game. Again, I let off. Let me cherry pick a little bit. But after those first 3 weeks, looking at the rest of the fantasy season, there was very minimal difference. And that kind of coincides with when Zach Moss was, disappearing. But yeah.
Fine. I'll let you have that one, JB. That's
how much more can I narrow it in?
Yeah. All right. So the tight end premium on this doesn't really matter because you're just selecting through tight end. So put whatever. Let's do a 0.75 premium on this. So we have Mason Taylor, age 21, fantasy calc, tight end 14, and Jake Ferguson, Dan's guy, age 26, fantasy calc, tight end 19.
Can I lead with I hate you? Like why do you do this to me
close? Here? I was trying to find tight end is so hard to find two that are like somewhat close in value that someone's not just going to instant pick the other one.
Yeah. So, all right, you said no hedging tonight, so I won't hedge. Long term, it would be Mason Taylor for me. For tonight's show, being that we're going win now, and I'm drinking a little bit of the Kool-Aid this offseason, what I'm hearing from the Dallas beat writers with Ferguson, who's in a contract year. He just needs to stay healthy. He had a concussion last year, and he had a leg injury last year, and Dak was out after 4 weeks. You get Fergs with a complete bill of health. I'm not worried about Schoonmaker. All right. If you're in your deep tight end leagues, I think there's even a chance Brevin Spanford could possibly pass Schoonmaker out as tight end 2. I'm not sure. Or they just split snaps. But I think Ferg's clearly the guy who's healthy in a contract year with a Dallas offense where Dak's there, the O-line's there. The biggest question mark in Dallas is the running back. That's what keeps me up at night. So win now, contract year, prime of his career. I'm going to go with Fergs. I'm going to be a believer for a win now type roster. Although I love Taylor, long term, that would be my guy.
John,
give me Mason Taylor.
How are they in your tiers?
They're in the same tier.
Oh, okay.
So I see a lot of comments, Mason Taylor easily.
Haters, Ferg haters.
I'll go Mason Taylor, but this is my one hedge. I get one hedge because I've been okay for now.
Hey, there's still 3 more to go, so you better make sure this is the correct hedge.
This is the only hedge. Maybe. We'll see. But Mason Taylor, if you have him, you can move him for Ferguson plus.
Yeah, I think so. I think
you could get a plus there. But I think Jake Ferguson, it's kind of that Dalton Schultz path. And yeah, obviously it's an easy comparison because they were both in Dallas. But does he get extended beyond 25? What does his situation look like beyond this year? And Mason Taylor, we know how fragile and just in dire straits the tight end position is. So Mason Taylor, he shows out a little bit here in his rookie season. I'm tempering expectations. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and absolutely smash, but there is obviously room for him to grow from a value perspective. It doesn't matter what Ferguson does. Like, nobody likes him.
Let me say, and no one does like him. And that's where maybe I would say, hey, for those that are in the chat and don't like him, don't just throw him away. 2 years ago, again, this is not being a Cowboy homer. I took Barkley before. All right. He looked really good 2 years ago when he was healthy, better than Dalton Schultz looked in his best year with Dallas. He really had some serious injuries last year and a Cooper Rush throw into him. It was just a different team. I wonder, does Mason Taylor get off to a slow start as a rookie, and then you go and buy him at a buy low potentially if he has that rookie start? So again, we're talking drafting here. I think you draft Ferg to win now, and then hey, you're going to get Mason Taylor. So.
Now, because we are contending, or we are
we
on the
we are trying to contend.
That was the
we're
rules
on
of the
the cusp.
show.
Roster construction for me would still come into play here. So
for me, it would too. Yeah, I don't think.
because
For me, Jake Ferguson isn't giving you enough over Mason Taylor for me to be like that 3 points per game is going to outweigh what hopefully a younger Mason Taylor, who I really liked as a draft prospect, can be compared to Jake Ferguson.
But Ferguson, he kind of falls into that boat from a value perspective, especially in startups. You know, you can get him even a little after Evan Ingram. You can get him, you know, after Terrence Ferguson in a lot of situations. I know, you know, now it's going to be interesting to see the value perspective between like Johnny Smith and Jake Ferguson. I think that's going to flip. But with Jake Ferguson, like if you're in a league where, you know, maybe it's just not a very active league and the Jake Ferguson owner comes knocking on your door and you're just really hurting for a tight end and you're looking for some type of production, I don't think the cost to acquire is ever going to put you in a bad situation if you do go the Jake Ferguson route. But yeah, I'll stick with Mason Taylor for the answer.
Perfect.
Dallas loves the tight end. Let me just end with
They
that
do.
there too. Like it is an integral part of their offense. Dak loves the tight end, so he could get a lot more catches than a Mason Taylor this year.
Moving ahead, I like 99% sure I know which side Dan's gonna go on here, but we're gonna go Rashee Rice, age 25, fantasy calc, wide receiver 17, and T Higgins, age 26, fantasy calc, wide receiver 18. I just, you know, it's the hard part, Dan. Is it, can Rashee Rice being that dominant wide receiver one, are you willing to overlook the other things?
This one is the easiest one of the night for me.
Yeah, I knew it.
I have T Higgins quite a few slots over, like one tier actually ahead of Rashee Rice, or even if there's some guys I could see that I would bump Rashee up here in Dynasty. So maybe they're in the same tier, but T's still a few ahead.
The chat might not agree with you.
I know Rashee came out blazing with such great volume in the beginning, and I think the Dynasty world or fantasy world is projecting, hey, if he's healthy for a full season and he gets the volume and what he did, you know, pre-injury, it would be Rashee Rice is the number one in Kansas City. But I don't think that's sustainable. I think that's going to be distributed a little bit more amongst Xavier Worthy and Kelsey and you know, I don't like the off the field issues as well with Rashee Rice.
Mm-hmm.
To me in Cincinnati, it's just so concentrated with Chase and Higgins. They're around the same age, 1 year apart there. I think T's a specimen. I'm going to take him with Joey Burrow and that concentrated offense versus a little bit of that Kansas City roller coaster. I do think the Kansas City offense is going to be an uptick better for fantasy this year. If all three of those guys could stay healthy or on the field, I think Kansas City's O-line's a little bit better. Cincinnati definitely still has questions with their O-line, but Burrow is just the best at getting the ball out of his hands and overcoming that. So again, I'm going to go T, but it's not that far apart. If someone said Rashee, like JB just might right now, I'd understand it.
I'm also going to go T Higgins. Echoing Dan's sentiment here. I have it much closer together, but I have the luxury of sitting there and formulating my thought while Dan gets to go first here, as opposed to the first half of the show where I was just thrust into it. You know, I do well when I don't get to prepare anything. But with T Higgins, it is that consolidated target share in a very pass-heavy offense. I think Kansas City's offense is going to take a step forward. We're going to see Patrick Mahomes being a little bit more like Patrick Mahomes from a fantasy perspective. But you add in these extra pieces. How does Xavier Worthy, as he developed throughout the season, now with Rashee Rice in the mix, how does that play out? So give me T Higgins, but another good one. But even though a lot of people, they're saying Rice easy. Yeah, I'll take T.
It's Rice, but it's okay. Now, so I did
T
not
and Rice. What a combination.
I did not pick this one. I had this one on the show notes 3 days ago. It has nothing to do with the trade today, but it makes even better with the trade today. We have DK Metcalf, age 27, fantasy calc, wide receiver 24. This is the biggest gap. Or Tyreek Hill, age 31, fantasy calc, wide receiver 33. I almost didn't do this one, but then I'm still like, DK Metcalf still has to be able to score points. And we at least kind of have a little bit of faith that Tyreek Hill can do that. Dan muted himself, but that's okay.
He is on mute.
Good to do for one tonight, boys. Do for one tonight. I'm going to go DK Metcalf here. I do believe Tyreek might squeeze one more good year out of him, but 31 wide receiver, that's a cliff for me. DK 27, he's in his prime here. I'm not big on DK by any means. These are two guys, Mitch, that in drafts I'm probably fading both of them. But if there was a point where it just made sense and they slid and I had to take one, it would be DK 27 with he should be the central point of this Pittsburgh offense. Who knows, again, as we were talking about Arthur Smith earlier, but 27 versus 31, and DK seems to be maturing a little bit, man. I'm hearing some quotes about his faith on the X, and Tyreek, he just, man, I listened to him at Fanatics Fest as well, and the stuff that comes out of his mouth, to me, he's the Miami-Dade police is just kind of keeping an eye on him around the clock. So I just don't want to roll that dice. Give me DK Metcalf.
Oh, so
you're
I
getting
mentioned
easy, like you said, you're getting it easy on these ones.
Well, I mentioned the shift in my tiers when looking at the tight ends. I didn't do anything with the wide receivers yet, and I was hoping I could skate by and not have to answer anything involving these guys tonight, but here we are.
Thanks, Mitch.
Oh, man.
I do what I can.
I mean, I talk about T with the consolidated target share, taking him over Rice. Tyreek Hill, you have to assume we at least get 2 more years out of him. He has shown he can clearly be a true difference maker. Oh, man.
Let's see. Here he is. Is he truly a Steeler fan? We said he was the biggest at the beginning of the show.
Yeah,
if I was a Steelers fan, I know who I'd pick.
I'm gonna go Tyreek here.
Yeah.
I just think there is still that potential for a true difference maker, and something I'll have to look at in the tiers here whenever we jump off.
Hey, this is perfect timing right before the last question. Mark, thank you for the super chat. Walked in at the right time, need depth. Got offered 2 trades for T. T for Rice and Ayuk.
Yeah.
Or T and Jonnu for Pickens and Chase Brown. Thoughts?
Oh, man.
John, go ahead.
Can we find a way to accept both?
Yeah.
Right? I want in that league.
And
he's off my team tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm assuming, Mark, can you provide any further information on the tight end premium? Not that
premium or points per carry or anything like that.
We said we hated Jonnu. I think if he needs a running back, you take the Pickens and Chase. If you don't need a running back, boy, Rice and Ayuk are just fine. Roster dependent. What you need more, 2 receivers or a receiver and a running back.
And then is it start 9, start 11?
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna go Rice and Ayuk. That's where I'm going.
I'll go Pickens and Brown.
Oh my God.
John, you got to split the tie.
I know. I honestly like both trades. And again, maybe I am truly a Dallas Cowboys fan because I really like Pickens this year. Really like Pickens. But
come on, no hedging. John, pick something already.
But my roster construction would come into play here. It really would.
Lead with that. Go with it.
Because if it's not tight end premium, ultimately it's T for Pickens and Chase, or it's T for Rice and Ayuk.
I don't think I'd ever start Jonnu again.
Give me Pickens
tight end premium.
Give me Pickens and Chase Brown.
You guys are buying that Pickens Kool-Aid.
It's hard to get that running back though, to get a feature.
No,
running back.
I completely agree. Yeah, no, that's a good pick. Either way, you're good at that one. Okay, last one of the night, Dan. Mark Andrews, the guy who was going to get kicked out of Baltimore for 1 drop catch, age 29.
That was a big drop.
12, or Tucker Kraft, who probably didn't catch anything in the playoffs, age 24, fantasy calc, tight end 9.
This goes to the I hate you category again, and it might be just hard for me to let go. It's a history of loving Mark Andrews. I always have. But age 29, coming off of that heartbreaker, Kraft is definitely ascending. Everything we're hearing on the offseason, it feels like there's some momentum there for Tucker Kraft. I do have Andrews ahead of him in my rankings. So if I'm going by my rankings, it is Andrews and a win now. But man, is Tucker Kraft tempting here.
John?
No,
I see you
I'm going to
thinking
try.
over there.
Win now with the rules of tonight's show. I'm going to stay with my boy Andrews for one more run. Give me Andrews.
I'm also going to go Andrews. We see the spike weeks there. I just don't know if we get that from Tucker Kraft and the way that Green Bay offense is set up. So it's really nice that I'll be able to stack my Mark Andrews with the Lamar Jackson that I traded away for Jaden Daniels.
You don't like stacks anyway, so it works
Yeah,
out.
who needs them?
Yeah.
So I'm going to pair Jaden Daniels with Mark Andrews on this team.
All right, guys. I hope this was a decent show for everybody. Please, in the comments. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Hey, in the comments, please tell us who you liked on each of these trades. But Dan, I'll let you lead off. Final thought for tonight.
Hey, final thought for tonight, man. It's been a, vacation was nice. Even though I, was away for a week, guys, I was doing underdog best ball drafts. I was playing around on Dynasty Daddy, looking at my rosters, trying to make trades. And, somehow I still have 100% Tommy Tremble shares, but my plug tonight is for Dynasty Daddy, man. Get in there and look at your portfolios. Normally I'm a guy that just goes off of my brain and goes off of my Excel sheet with all my rankings, but it was just such a quick cheat sheet to see where my shares were this offseason in my portfolio. And then looking at the power rankings, especially a lot of our leagues are switching to sleeper. And as much as there's a lot we love with that sleeper app mobile, it's not always easy to kind of dissect all the rosters. That Dynasty Daddy portfolio of rankings really just, sometimes it called me a fraud or a little frisky. So I didn't take it personal, but it really centralized my focus to make me, pop out some more trades this week and get these leagues active here in the off season. So shout out to Dynasty Daddy and let me know I have 100% Tremble shares. Thank you.
Dude, he is. It's safe to cut Tommy Tremble. It is safe to cut Tommy Tremble.
He could be their starter this year. He just has to get over that back surgery of the offseason. But on a good note, I had 47% Josh Downs shares. So that might be a little more relevant statistic that'll help our listeners.
Sure.
Tommy Tremble with 2.8 points per game in 2025, coming to you live from Dynasty Theory. The chat absolutely fantastic tonight. Obviously going back and forth, a lot of good choices and options that we had to choose from. But final thoughts, episode 297 here. 3 more until 300. I don't typically give a final thought, and I know
I put you kind of on the spot here.
I clearly was not prepared. Just like the episode below. It takes a second. Subscribe to the channel.
Hey, that's what I'm supposed to say here.
Tremble blows. That's it, monkey, right there. No, thank you all for watching. This was fantastic. And it was nice. I got to kick back and relax a little bit, even after I interrupted Dan quite a few times to start. But I let him get his groove.
The same as normal. No big deal. Hey, please join the DD Fantasy Football website. Be part of the community. Be part of the Discord. If you're on YouTube, you put a trade question in the YouTube comments. Post it in the Discord. There's a much greater chance that we'll actually answer it than what we can do in the YouTube chat. That's how it is. If you're in the Discord, it's a lot easier to answer them. But please join up. I guarantee if you're part of the community, you will not want to leave. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.